Hey everybody, welcome to the Drop Lob Pod. I'm Edik and I'm joined by my co-host Nathan. And today we're going to be discussing the Miami Open and everything from the best matches to some interesting results. Looking forward to the next couple weeks as we turn towards the clay season. So Nathan, I know that you were at the Miami Open. You were there live, as was I. So I wanted to get into a discussion about the women's tournament, and I think it's just, we should start with talking about Arina Sabalenka, her dominance, completing the Sunshine Double with a victory in the final over Coco Gauff, where she did win in three sets. And obviously it's been well documented that she's lost in these finals before, most notably at the US Open and French Open against Coco. So, would love to get your thoughts on Sabalenka so far this year and, overall the women's tournament at Miami.
Man, Sabalenka was incredible, but we do have a more important discussion topic that you just reminded me of. I was at the Miami Open for a couple days. It was great. I honestly really do enjoy it outside of like going to the US Open, which I do every year. It's they've improved the event, the site a lot, the on-site like amenities, whatever. But you guys would think that Edik and I attended the event together, given that we were both there and actually on the same day. But Edik didn't respond to me all day. Big time me to go to God knows what. So for those of you that think that we're friends, I guess we're just two guys that do a podcast together and occasionally end up in the same state at the exact same location, but don't respond to texts. But anyway, to answer my podcast co-host question, Sabalenka looked incredible all tournament. I mean, she's been playing incredible for years. She's been pretty established as the world number one for over a year now at this point. Um, I think that honestly, she's kind of gotten over most big hurdles in her way. Like the last tournament over at Indian Wells, she beat Rybakina down match point to win the finals, which was really, really big for her. Hit like an absolute rocket of a backhand while we were live on podcast. Someone could probably find the moment where my soul was crushed. So I was rooting for Rybakina, but yeah, beating Coco Gauff in a final is really like the number one thing that Sabalenka could not do. Coco Gauff was actually 9-0 in hard court finals coming into this match. Um, incredibly clutch. Sabalenka was dominating, hadn't been broken in the match at all, up 5-4 serving this or 5-4 on serve in the second set. Gets broken from up 30 love. The stadium goes ballistic for Coco. Coco holds the start or no, goes up 30 love to start the third set. And it felt like there was a momentum swing. And Sabalenka was finally able to hold it together mentally and just not be disrupted by Coco's great defense. And as Edik and I have discussed before, Coco's defensive abilities are really what give her that opportunity to break through here and there. And also are what, when they let her down, kind of allow her to lose to that lower caliber player that a Sabalenka does not lose to. But yeah, she held it together. I was watching with my parents. I told them that after we saw Sabalenka, she originally lost the US Open finals to Coco. I think it was back in 2023 now. Then she lost the French Open finals to Coco last year, 2 years ago. Um, and she had some pretty choice words in the media after the second time she lost to Coco. They did go and like do a little TikTok together and made up after that and said they were cool because they both are two personalities that are pretty influential in the women's space, and I think like they're both well liked. But yeah, she basically called Coco bad at tennis, in shorter terms after the last time she lost to her. And I said that if she lost this match, she was probably going to have some harsher words. So thank God for her sake, for her media, for the sake of the media that she won. But yeah, she's very clearly the world number one. Nobody touches her at this point. Rybakina is a clear level below, and at this point, everybody else plays a level below that.
Well, I'm not sure about a clear level below. I think that's a hot take considering the fact that Elena beat her in the Australian Open final, right? So, and listen, tennis is such a funny sport and it's so close because, 1 point, she loses that point against Elena in the Indian Wells final, things could be completely different, right? Great job to Sabalenka. She won the two tournaments, but at the end of the day, we're going to judge her on the Grand Slams. So if she goes out there and loses in the French Open, loses in Wimbledon, these two tournaments aren't really going to matter. In my opinion, she's still got to prove herself at those Grand Slams. Sure, she has four, but she's got to add to it, especially because she is the most dominant player right now. And I don't think that she's a level above everyone. The margins are very slim in tennis. Coco could have had her in this final. Elena was had match point on her, at the Indian Wells. So, like I said, congrats to Arena, but I'm still looking for her to solidify herself throughout the rest of the year and to win the Grand Slams.
I think that's fair. I guess we could definitely say that. But either way, Sabalenka's not obviously the only storyline on the women's side. I mean, Coco Gauff was also down a set in her very first match of the tournament back in the round of 64. So once again, kind of showing it seems like whenever she does dominate, there's just a lot of grit and grind in there. Like she was down a set to Belinda Bencic, she was down a set to Costa Rito in the first round, down a set to Sabalenka, even if she ultimately lost that. Um, I will say Karolina Mukova, who I don't think we've talked about a ton, very clearly has kind of established herself in that top 10, maybe even close to the top five when healthy. A player that really doesn't struggle with players outside of the top, maybe 15 or so. Is very aggressive with her serve. Like, probably, you can correct me if I'm wrong. I think maybe the best serve and volleyer currently on the women's tour. And she's very aggressive in return as well. But for whatever reason, Coco Gauff just absolutely owns her. 6-0 against Mukova now after this past match, beat her 6-1, 6-1 after starting down a break in 40-30. Um, what do you I mean, I'm just always interested in what makes one player's game absolutely own another player's game, especially when they're two players at that caliber. What do you think like makes that difference for Coco in that specific matchup?
Yeah, listen, I think you, first of all, had great insight about Carolina in the sense that she doesn't struggle against players underneath her, which is a common trend for some of the higher level seeded players on the WTA Tour. She has run into Coco a few times now. Obviously she evidently struggles with her. It's obviously a matchup, that she doesn't like. Like you said, she is an aggressive baseliner, mixes it up, slices, and does come to the net. So it sort of just plays into the hands of Coco in the sense that she's a counterpuncher and, she's sort of waiting for Carolina to make the move and then ultimately is able to counterattack. So, and it's hard once you've lost, 4 or 5 matches against someone to turn the tide. She's just a strong professional right now. I think she'll always make these runs to the quarters and semis, but ultimately, not sure if she has it yet to win a Grand Slam.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, she's so aggressive and Coco's so defensive, and usually I would expect the aggression to prevail, but Coco just freaking outlasts her like every time and just gives her nightmares, completely negates everything that she does. Super interesting. A lot of very I think it's probably one of my favorite things about watching tennis in general. It's just like the dynamics between certain players and how they play out because unlike many other sports, like there are so many different ways to play singles in tennis. Like Amanda Anisimova, who we've talked about a couple times, like clear top five player last year. She's kind of maybe slipping a little bit now, but just absolutely just nukes every single ground stroke. Like incredibly powerful, very precise, very aggressive. She plays Bencic like in the Miami Open here, the round of 16, and like can't hold serve to save her life. Like Bencic just picked her apart, just absolutely dominated her. Just everything that Amanda liked to do, Bencic just absorbed all of her power, redirected every ball perfectly. Had zero struggles, was just dialed in, having the match of her life. Then she comes up against Coco, who like shanks so many forehands, does not power anybody through the court, and just all of a sudden like can't generate any pace on her own and like can't win to save her life. So I don't know, definitely like very interesting on the women's side. Obviously, Rybakina looked incredible again. Like Jess Pegula had her up against the ropes in the first set, beat her 6-2. Was up, I believe, in early break in the second. Could be wrong there. But then just actually she was. I'm standing by that. I was watching. And then Rybakina just showed why she's like still clear world number two at least. She's as aggressive as the other girls, but she very clearly has the best serve on the women's tour. I'd say since Serena, I think we've mentioned that on one of the first podcasts, but it's really been solidified now. The pressure that Elena Rybakina's serve puts on another women's player because it's such a point of weakness across the game. It's actually crazy to see like the advantage it gives her just by getting first service winner points, first service points that she just wins off first ball. It's kind of crazy.
Yeah, listen, I think that the women's game is in a phenomenal spot. They continue to, in my opinion, have more interesting matchups than the men's side. I think the WTA Tour is way more interesting. It's nice when you have someone like Sabalenka, who, for all intents and purposes, is like at the top right now. They're all chasing her. You have a clear number two in Elena, potentially, number one as well. And then on any given day, you have these other players like Coco, like Anisimova, like a Bencic that can break through and really contend against the other players. And then even, a little bit lower down, 15 to 20, you have people like Schneider. Obviously, Mukova's a little bit higher up, but the women's game is deep. I saw Alicia Parks play. It was great to see Alicia Parks. She looked great. So you have a lot of interesting matchups. Like, Bencic does cause problems for Amanda because just the way she takes the ball so early is able to diffuse plays and redirect the ball down the line, which, exploits Amanda's movement. So I think there's some interesting storylines heading into the clay season. Obviously, of note that Iga fired her coach. We'll see if that's a good move or not. She won Wimbledon with that particular coach last year. Amanda fired her coach as well, having made two Grand Slam finals. I do worry, and I've said this before about Amanda in the sense that she made those two finals. It's very hard to make a Grand Slam final. She better do it soon, otherwise it's going to be really hard to make it back there again, especially because she is a player that's predicated on making shots, timing, execution, not someone like Carolina who's very consistent usually will have a chance to go deep in any tournament. So let's see how those coaching changes go. It's a carousel on the WTA Tour.
Yeah.
So let's see what happens.
I also had the pleasure of being in the stadium to watch Iga Świątek lose her first round match to her fellow countrywoman Magda Linette, a fellow Pole. And Iga was literally up 5-0 in the first set of her first match in the round of 64. My friends were betting on the tournament. I was there. She was like 100 to 1 favorite. She lost. Didn't even like put up a fight. Wasn't up a break in the second. Lost it, I believe, 6-4. She lost it 7-5. Got broken at 6-5 pretty convincingly. Went down a break pretty fast in the third. Got a couple chances in the final game to get it back. But like, I mean, she is like just she looks terrible this year. I mean, and she lost early in Miami last year. That's what started the whole Eala mayhem. And nothing against Alexielle as a person. She seems perfectly nice. I don't believe her game withstands the test of the top 50, maybe even like 75. Mukova beat her 0-2. It was nice to see her kind of like get put back in her proper like standing in terms of just tennis skill. But Iga's not going to lose too many ranking points, if any, actually, for that, which will be nice for her. But just insanely disappointing performance going out like that. And kind of shocking to watch in person. Honestly, the energy in the stadium was incredibly dead. You could like barely tell that there was an upset going on. But I mean, ouch.
Yeah. Yeah, listen, I think that sort of her struggles have been blown out of proportion. Reminder, she did make the quarterfinals of the Australian Open where she lost to Elena. And obviously the last two tournaments. She also made the quarters in Indian Wells where she lost to Elena Svitolina. So she's had some good results. And again, she's only one good tournament away from reasserting herself as a top player. I think she's a perennial top player. Is she going to be as successful as in years past? No. So you just got to set the expectations a little bit lower. I think if she wins one Grand Slam this year, it's a complete success for her. Whereas I feel like if Sabalenka only wins one Grand Slam this year, that's not a success.
Yeah.
Um, so, like
Sabalenka
I
is
said,
is 100% the pinnacle of the game right now, but Iga's still a couple years younger and has already achieved more success, so she's got plenty of time to get back on that. And then the last thing I'll say, although she wasn't crazy relevant in the tournament, Victoria Mboko, we've mentioned her a lot in the last couple of weeks, makes the quarters, loses Mukova in a tight one, like 5-6 or something like that. Beat Andreeva. I gave in to what you said. I was at the tournament. I was betting a little bit of money on it. I took Mboko. I see the future. Mboko, I'm very interested to see how she plays in clay season. One of the things that the announcers were talking about on TV when I was watching the tournament, was just how she wasn't even in the top 100 at this time last year. So her like kind of playing clay swing now, having a chance to really gain ranking points while she's already like 8 or 9 in the world. And I mean, Andy Roddick just said on Serve podcast that like he thinks she's winning a major in the next 2 years. I don't know if I'd put the hype that high only because Zarina Sabalenka does exist. She is 2-0 against Rybakina though, which is promising. 0-2 against Mukova, however. But man, like her backhand's phenomenal. Her movement's up there. She's definitely very troubling for these top players. So I'm interested to see how she plays clay and how she plays grass. Um, and one more comment to lead us into the men's. We'll go into a little men's recap now. And I think that's a good time to mention as Sinner and Yuri Lechka are currently in a rain delay. The rain just absolutely destroyed Miami Open this year. It made it very difficult to watch and follow. They had multiple full days rained out, tons of delays in and out. As a fan of tennis, which is unfortunately unlike a basketball or a soccer or something, sometimes with the roof, whatever, more of an indoor sport or football where they just play through it. Tennis is so dependent on the weather. Do you get frustrated as a fan when there's a tournament that just gets absolutely just jacked up by rain, or is it just kind of something like you're patient, you don't really care, it's part of how the sport goes?
Yeah, I mean, you can't control these things, right? So of course they got hit by the weather, which was unfortunate, but they managed, and I think that the tournament will finish up. So listen, it's that time of year in South Florida, and especially during the summer, you're getting rain every single day in the afternoon. So yeah, it is what it is. They just got to move forward and just know that this is always going to be a potential issue each year.
Yeah, and not just a potential issue. I mean, when I was down there, I was staying about 20 minutes away from the stadium and it was sunny for an entire morning and it poured at the stadium the whole time, which is very Florida-esque. So that was unfortunate, but yeah. Waiting to get through the final right now. Obviously, you guys got a little bit of a preview who made it. Just like last year, we've got a top player and a Czech player that's a little bit outside the top 20. Just this time, the top player is Jannik Sinner instead of Novak Djokovic, and the Czech is Yuri Lechka instead of Jakub Mensik. Last year, Jakub Mensik took it home, mostly just a setup for me to mention that my boy won the Masters 1000. This year, it's looking like it's going to be Jannik Sinner in a tournament that shocks absolutely nobody. I think Edik was just kind of highlighting the parity in men's tennis, or in women's tennis, I mean, because men's tennis has none. It's Jannik Sinner or it's Carlos Alcaraz. And I mean, I'll go backwards and we'll go forwards real quick. I feel like we really solidified at the Australian Open this year when Sinner lost to Novak Djokovic, which was probably the most parity the men's game has seen in like years. And Alcaraz was down 5-3 in the final set to Zverev on the ropes. We thought we'd finally see a new champion. And Carlos just still did his thing, won 7-5 and destroyed Novak in the finals. Like, it's if one fails, the other will pick them up. Obviously, they're playing against each other and they're competing for greatness, but at this point, it almost feels like they're a team and everybody else is the opponent. Um, do you kind of feel that way at this point watching men's tennis, like it's them versus the fields every time they step onto the court, or is it still kind of an everyone versus everyone for you?
Yeah, I think that's a very fair assessment. Sinner has been consistent all throughout, so I always expect him to be in the semis or the finals of the tournament. You
Unless
know,
he plays Jakub Mensik.
yeah. He really exemplifies more of like the Djokovic, Federer, Nadal, Murray, where he's just extremely professional, goes about his business and takes care of the early rounds and beats the people that he's supposed to beat. Alcaraz, this guy is just severely disappointing. in terms of his attitude off the court. I'm tired of seeing all these pictures on Instagram of him golfing. Right now, he's more of a golf player than he is a tennis player. And he probably has had more wins on the golf course than he has on the tennis court in the last month or so. Um,
And he'll still be winning the French Open.
he might be. I think the storyline now is like, will Alcaraz make it past the first few rounds? And if he does lose, then the matches just get boring, and predictable. And of course, Zverev lost to Sinner. You had Arthur Fils, getting to the semifinals. He had a big win against Tommy Paul, down 2-6 in the third set tiebreaker. Although, in my personal opinion, there's some funny business going on with his ability to recover so quickly from a bad back injury and be able to compete at this level so quickly after having come back. But that's really neither here nor there. As you can tell in my tone of voice, I'm just bored by the men's game. I barely watched any of the men's tennis while I was there. And it's just like it's inevitable. And it's just like, oh, which surprise person can make the final? Great, it's Lehechka. Well, he's not going to win. But good job.
Yeah.
Good
He
job.
opened as a 10-1 underdog in the finals.
Yeah, exactly.
And I mean, like, I'd flipped the match on very early, and it was 0-1, 15-30 from Sinner, and I was just like, will Sinner get broken and win the first set? Will Sinner hold and win the first set? Will Sinner lose the first set and win the second set? Will Sinner lose the first set, get broken and win the second and third set? Like, it's not a question of will, it's a question of when
Yeah.
at this point. And yeah, that kind of feeds into the inevitability. Like, you just get that feeling. I still do watch men's tennis, unlike you though. I do enjoy the product. I did watch Sebastian Korda beat Carlos Alcaraz. I will give him his props. Sebastian Korda, I've been waiting for years for him to do something awesome. I love watching his game. I think his ground strokes are so pure, so smooth. He's got a really good serve. He really has all the elements of his game together. He was looking great a couple years ago. He went to the media. He said his goal was to win a major, and he immediately became absolutely dog shit right after. And stayed that way for a while. Got hurt recently. Came back kind of fluttering down in like I think the 70s or 80s in the rankings. Played a challenger tournament, Challenger 75 in San Diego. Got to the finals. Did not win that. Made enough points to kind of I think get in a Del Rey main draw, which is a 250 tournament. Went down there, won that, beat Tommy Paul. Looked very impressive and then kind of used that confidence. He said in his press conference post beating Alcaraz, which he did in three sets. He also did try to pull the classic quarter choke, which he did back in Houston when he was up against Taylor Fritz, who was like pretty clearly injured, and he was up a set against him, and he was up in the third set tiebreaker, and just still managed to play like the tightest tennis I've ever seen, push very easy neutral balls out in all different sorts of directions to lose. So he was up a set. He was up 4-1, like love 30. He was up 5-3. He was serving for it 5-4. Got broken to love. Seemed like all the momentum was Alcaraz's way. Wins the set 7-5. But credit to Korda, really stayed mentally strong for once and won the third set, beat him, went to the press conference, said that Del Rey and San Diego were really crucial for him playing those pressure points. All the fans could tell he looked incredible against Alcaraz, and he came into the next round with a great draw, playing Martin Landaluz from Spain, ranked 150 in the world. Credit to Martin. He played an incredible tournament, was very, very clutch, has a huge forehand. Um, and yeah, he won the first set 6-2, was looking smooth in the second set, up match playing the tiebreaker, 6-5 serving. He serves his second serve, and Landaluz just crushes a Sabalenka versus Rybakina-esque backhand cross court at like what seemed like 500 miles an hour, skidding off the line, and proceeded to just absolutely dismantle Sebastian Korda's livelihood in three sets, sends him packing. Um, that was kind of just a background, but there are a couple questions there. Number one, is this more of a boost for Korda's confidence that he beat the literal world number one? Or is it actually another blow to his confidence that he can play that tennis, beat the world number one, and still proceed to choke when it matters most? Like which way do you see him taking this mentally? It can be a little bit of both too. For me, I think that it actually could hurt his confidence more than it helps, even though he beat the world number one in the process.
It's a good question. Yeah, I think he'll gain confidence from it. He lost to Landaluce, and people make a big deal out of him being like, oh, 150 in the world, but his level was strong this week. He
Oh,
was probably playing
agreed.
top,
Yep.
level. So, yeah, I mean, I'm sorry. It's just he's so boring. The guy is just so boring that it's like I literally couldn't care less. Like he's not going to win a slam. He probably contend for some 500s, maybe even 1,000. Like he plays really clean. His strokes are great. He couldn't be more boring. Um, and that's really
Yeah.
just it. Like,
Do you think that
you
boring
know what?
tennis equals good tennis though, or do you think that you need to be exciting to be great?
No, it's not about that. I'm talking about
This
more his person. I'm talking about more his person. Obviously,
Sinner's boring as hell, man.
yeah, but Sinner wins. Korda doesn't win. So that's the thing. Like your personality, if you're bad, you need to have like an interesting personality. Like at least Arthur Feast is like energetic and he gets the crowd involved and he's a good-looking guy. And then Sinner, he wins and then he ends up in a rivalry with Alcaraz, so he's benefited from that. So it's like if you're just
Yeah.
boring and you're like making the round of 16 like every time, but not really that good. Like if Korda wasn't American, no one would know about him.
Okay, I got two follow-ups. We're going completely off the rails in the men's tournament because you're right. Men's tennis right now is inevitable, but there are good questions to be asked from it being inevitable. Obviously, you're not going to watch a tennis podcast for a week and not hear about Carlos Alcaraz and Jannik Sinner. They are inevitable, but they are still the game. Who do you think benefits more from that rivalry, Alcaraz or Sinner?
That's a good question. Sinner's the beneficiary because Alcaraz doesn't need Sinner to be famous and to have a big draw. Sinner didn't really have a following before Alcaraz came around and made him famous. That's just my personal opinion.
I agree. I think he's much more personal. I think his game has more variety. He's dynamic. He's got more signature moments. He's got pretty much everything. I mean, yeah, he's out there posting that he's playing golf with freaking Federer and Zverev and stuff down in Miami, which is cool. And it's great to see that or Djokovic and Zverev, apologies. Although he did play with Federer as well this year. But it's great to see that the players do get along off the court because at the end of the day, like they're gonna become friends. They're all traveling to all the same tournaments together. I think that might be a misconception from some people that like they all hate each other's guts because they're competing against each other. Like it's just like basically that's their office. They're like coworkers, even they're entertainers. Like obviously they want to win when they get on the court, but like who else are they gonna hang out with off the court, you know? So like it's you see them playing golf, like obviously he's having more fun, but he shares more of his life to the public. He made the mini doc series on Netflix. He plays in like all like some of the celebrity tournaments, whatever. Like he plays multiple sports. But yeah, at the end of the day, I agree that Sinner definitely benefits much more from the Alcaraz rivalry than Alcaraz benefits from it. I would say that the one thing that Sinner does bring, which is massive for Alcaraz, is a consistent level of high level of competition that forces him to be at the top of his game. Because if Jannik Sinner did not exist, I strongly question Alcaraz's motivation to stay at the top, to train, and to try to compete to win. I think he could potentially get pretty freaking lazy, just assuming he could waltz in under almost any circumstances and win a major whenever he wants. And I think that we do have to credit Sinner for training like an absolute dog. And I don't think that that doesn't mean that Alcaraz is a world class athlete. He is the best, close to, if not the best tennis player in the world. Like when I say not train hard, that means train 4 hours a day instead of six, hit 5 leg days instead of six, like not take that last rep. Like Sinner just makes him push it that extra mile that makes their points 3 shots longer, that makes them run down those couple more drop shots, hit that one more ace. Like the margin is maybe something you wouldn't notice, but like I just think that they both push each other that last extra bit, and I think it's good that Center's there for that for Alcaraz. But in every other respect, it's for
Yeah,
Center.
yeah, fair points.
Um, and you're gonna kill me because I didn't talk about Mira, so I'm gonna talk about your other least favorite person. How freaking boring is watching Zverev get matched up against Center every tournament, man? I mean, talk about inevitability. I had a guy message me on Twitter. So I got the tennis Twitter account, and he's like, "Hey man, what do you think's gonna happen for this Zverev Sinner match?" And I just messaged him back, "Have you watched tennis in the last 2 years?" And he goes, "Yeah." And I go, "What do you think's gonna happen?" He goes, "Sinner like 4-4." And I was like, "Yep, pretty much." Like that's just, I mean, and you do have to give it to the guy. Like Zverev's arguably got the greatest job in tennis at this point. As much as it's absolutely just crushing and defeating for him that he can't win the major, he seems to have almost accepted defeat in that respect. And as such, he can just be the third best tennis player on tour that beats every single player outside of the top 10 with like maybe one or two blemishes a year, makes almost every semifinal, gets paid a couple $1 million, scares a top two player once or twice here or there, and just has zero expectation to have to beat Sinner Alcaraz. He's going to open as like a 5-6 to 1 underdog. He's going to serve bot his way through like 7 or 8 games in the match in case, like, except for one or two matches where he's terrible and one or two where he's great. And he'll smile with his handshake 4-4, take his fat check and go party it up. And to be perfectly honest, in my personal opinion, big respect to him, man. He's better than 99% ever have been. He's better than 99% ever will be at the top level. And like if that's what he's okay with, man, that's what he's okay with. But you can't make me. I was at the bar and the on one screen was March Madness. I don't watch college basketball, and the other screen was Zverev Center, and I did not watch a point of Zverev Center. I watched college basketball. Because that's the level it's reached for me.
Yeah, I mean, it's a good way to sum it up. I think you have a good point there about, he's just doing his job, right? He's doing his job and he has limitations, and be very hard pressed to, find him beating one of those top guys anytime soon. He obviously has
Yeah.
a better chance against Alcaraz, but this Zverev matchup is real tough.
Yeah, I mean, and it's just there's just so much inconsistency outside of that. Like we saw Juan Fonseca back at Indian Wells push Sinner 7-6, 7-6 or something around that, and then he just gets dumped out early in this tournament. Like Mensik beats Sinner earlier this year. He loses to Tiafo, and then Tiafo. I mean, the parity outside of the top two should be mentioned is great. And if you cut the last two rounds out of every tournament, tennis would be phenomenal on the men's side right now. But unfortunately, the last two rounds are what matters most for people like you and I who are just incredibly competitive and really only care about winning and who wins. And if that's all you care about, the same guys are going to win. Uh,
Let me bring up a topic real quick before we finish out with some drop lob. Um, And it's not really a question. It's more of a
mm,
rhetorical statement.
okay.
Danielle Collins has got to be the most annoying person in the tennis hemisphere right now. I mean,
You better hope that she never sees this podcast, first of all.
can that woman please just go away? I mean, she's
Jeez, dude.
commentated more matches than she's won in the last like 2 years.
Is she
Either
commentating
pick
now?
if you're, don't interrupt me. Either pick if you're going to retire or not. Either pick if you're going to have a baby or not. She's going out there trashing Mute, which was not true. It's definitely fake news. I definitely believe him over her. Um, and ultimately, she's posting pictures on Instagram. I think they're AI enhanced, personally. And you know what? Let's see. Can she even play a tournament? Like, please. Oh my God, so annoying. And while we're at it, Coco Vandeweghe, terrible commentator, definitely needs to lose her job. She was also on there having a little spat with Chris Eubanks, which I didn't like at all, claiming that she could serve bigger than Eubanks, which is obviously false. Um, and yeah, just like Tennis Channel, let's hire some better people. I like Steve Weissman. I like, the Indian gentleman Armitage who does some of the interviews. Brett Haber, even Andrea Pekovic is good. But let's stop with Danielle Collins, please, for the love of God.
Okay. Very fair statement. Uh, I will say I've not been the biggest Daniel Collins fan either. Um, I would not go as far as you went with that, but I have not listened to a ton of commentary on the tennis channel. Uh, I wasn't aware because she did claim she was going to retire a while ago,
Yeah, last
and
year.
then she came back and I saw her playing, and she could not win a match to save her life. I had not seen an official retirement announcement. I kind of assumed she was retired. I knew that she was engaged at one point. I believe she broke off that engagement. I might be um I believe because I know she was on the Nothing Major podcast a couple months ago, and they were discussing finding her a new partner. So I do believe the engagement got broken off. I know she adopts a stray dog. Obviously, I'm not one personally. I'm always a little bit questioning motives of people that like to shove their narratives in the face of social media. However, I can't argue with you doing something good, even if you shove in the face of social media. So I'll give her a green flag or a check mark for the dog adoption. I can't speak to her personal life, but I will say she's very animated on the court. She talks big game, and she has not backed it up with her results. Um, and I am not a fan of her on the court. I'm not a fan of her actions. I'm not a fan of her expressions. I think it's just all very negative, and I'm not a very negative person. So it's not something that resonates with me. So I'm not going to share your same emphasis there, but I will agree that if Danielle Collins was removed from the spotlight, I would not be devastated. And I do also agree that Tennis Channel could use some new announcers. I will say they have one announcer that just has a huge lisp. And honestly, not saying that somebody that has a huge lisp shouldn't be an announcer, but it's genuinely hard for me to figure out what they're saying. I feel like they could find somebody that's a little bit more audible or a little bit more like I can comprehend what they're saying more. Um, so yeah, I agree. I think that they could do better.
Let's get into some drop lob, all right?
All right,
You ready?
Born.
All right. Drop or lob? Arena Sabalenka wins the French Open.
Lob. I mean, she's playing better than everyone else. She's looking like a machine. If she'd won the Australian Open, I'd say she was on pace to have one of the best seasons in women's tennis of all time. Um, Unfortunately, Rybakina grabbed that. And honestly, I don't I just don't know who Sabalenka's biggest competition would be at this point. Like I know you're saying not to panic on Iga, but Iga looks terrible. Coco, she finally got over the hump there on beating Coco in a big final. Rybakina is not known for her clay game. She still moves like a freaking elephant on ice skates, and clay just does not play to her favor. Yeah, I don't know who's gonna beat her. So yeah, I'm gonna go Sabalenka. Mukova, I think I would probably have to say is her number one threat on a clay court just because she took her really close in the French Open or beat her in the French Open before and is in very good form.
That's fair. Drop or lob, Sinner will overtake Alcaraz for the number one ranking by Wimbledon.
First of all, boring as hell that we have to come up with this same question for the men's game all the time just shows how absolutely just no parity there is. And yeah, for those watching, just to remind you, the only reason why this is possible is because Yannick got suspended for potentially having doped last year with the cortisol incident, so he wasn't able to gather any points at this time. I'm gonna drop it. I'm pretty sure Carlos is still like solidly 3,000 points or something crazy ahead of him. I just think he's gonna win one tournament for fun because he can. I think it would be much more difficult than you think for Sinner to pass him before then.
Interesting take. All right. Drop or lob, we see an American man, just in general, an American man
I'll lob that.
win, win
Say
a
one right now.
win a clay court title during the clay court swing.
Oh, they have to do something good at tennis. Yeah, I'm gonna drop that after hearing the full question. American men suck at tennis right now, relatively. I always feel funny to an extent doing a podcast as a guy that lost to you 1-1, talking about players that are top 100 and elite at their game, as if I can critique them like that feels silly sometimes. But that being said, within the context of the professional game and the expectations that us Americans have on athletes, and that we always expect to be the best in every sport, we train to be the best, we put the money and the resources into being the best. The men are just so disappointing. I mean, Fritz has been, we didn't mention him, but Fritz lost to Yuri Lechka here in Miami, and I believe the round of 16. He's been questionably injured all year. I will give it to him that he's a dog of a competitor and that he clearly plays through injury. But man, he needs to get healthy. He's not the same as he's been the last couple of years. And that was our top American. Tommy Paul, painfully inconsistent, blows the 6-2 tiebreak lead against Arthur Feast. For what it's worth, we can discuss on the next podcast. I think there's a big difference between amazing comeback and choke. I think that was more Feast comeback than Tommy Paul choke. Feast hit an incredible backhand down 6-3 on a great Tommy Paul approach. I do encourage anybody that enjoys tennis to look up the Arthur Feast Tommy Paul tiebreak and see what Arthur Feast did to save some of those points. But that being said, Tommy Paul still just, you never get that feeling that he's going to take out the best players. He's more so going to keep it close. Tiafo washed, sadly. Leonard Tien lost in the first round, like Kamil Majrzak the second round. Just, geez, disgusting. Um, and I mean, like Sebastian Corda, man, he takes out Carlos Alcaraz, and like, yes, I agree with you. Lando Luch is playing great tennis. I'd love to actually see him get higher up in the game. He was fun to watch, but can't do that, man. You want to be the best? You beat the best. You got to say, I'm the top dog now. This is why I beat the best. You got to follow the performance up. So if we count ATP Houston, that's like Tiafoe's stomping grounds. It's a 250. He might take that. But if we're talking the big 500s and thousands over in Europe, I don't expect to see any American men taking home a tournament on red clay. Drop.
Fair enough. I like that response. So thank you guys for joining us today. This coming week, there's two WTA tournaments, three men's tournaments. We're getting into the clay court swing. Most notably, the women are in Charleston for a 500 event, and my girl Donna Vekic did qualify. I can't even believe she's in qualifying. But last thing I'll
I
say is, and I can't believe I'm saying this, but men's tennis is so boring. I actually hope Cruz Hewitt makes the top 100.
Chris Hewitt has been sucking lately.
No, he's been
I,
sick. Oh my
he's
God.
playing ITF men's 15, which means you get 15 ATP ranking points over in Australia in his home country. They're playing on the grass courts right now, the fast grass courts down in Australia, and he has not won either of the tournaments he played. He did make a semis and a finals. He probably gathered like 15 ranking points. He only had like 35 total, so he shot up like 100 spots in the rankings, but at the end of the day, you got to win those, man. He took some big straight set losses to a couple guys ranked in the 750s. I haven't seen anything about the other I can't even remember his name right now, the other Spanish kid that won the Sunshine Double that I was expecting. My predictions might have to get framed and go into the Hall of Fame as just being some of the all-around worst predictions of all time, which I will let everybody know is frustrating because Edik and I have been doing this over text for a couple years before we started, and I'd actually had some pretty solid predictions in past years. But geez, did I shit the bed this year, to say the least.
Don't listen to him. He's lying to you guys. He's
I
lying.
will be pulling text receipts and I will be posting them for a future episode. Everybody have a great day. Thanks for tuning into the episode, and we will see you guys next week. We'll be back on normal schedule.
Thank you guys.